Good morning. Welcome to The Purpose Effect, the space where we get honest, we get intentional, and we get aligned with the life God designed for us. I'm David Rosenfeld. On Wednesdays, your host on Mondays is my co-host, Alicia. On Fridays, you get both of us. Our mission is simple: to help you stop floating through life and start living with purpose, clarity, and action. Today, you guys, I am here in the new studio at the house in Acton, and apparently my earring is falling out. We have made great changes. God is amazing. The stuff that's going on in our lives is just phenomenal. I can't even keep track of everything. It's just amazing. We've closed the offices in Van Nuys. We've prayed heavily and moved forward with making the move to go to Altadena and help some of the people who suffered losses in the fire over there. It's been brought to our attention that there's some sharks over there doing some stuff that we don't agree with. So the Lord is sending us over there. We're going to go and see if we can't make a difference in our normal business, which is construction, while I'm working on living out God's purpose, right? The show on Monday that Alicia did with Ray Higdon, it struck a chord with me. I know I keep saying this, but I don't listen to Alicia's shows until after I record mine. But when she has a guest, I like to be in alignment with what's happening. And I'll tell you what, learning to live in prayer, learning to be faithful, it's hard. Trusting is hard. I'm not good at it. I'm good at trusting myself and being responsible for everything that happens to myself. Not the best way to be, right? Because God's will over my desire. That was one of the things that Ray talked about when he and Alicia were speaking. And I didn't understand, right? I'm embracing my Christianity in a different way than I ever have. And as I'm doing that, my growth is crazy. I am understanding what was missing for me. I was living a faith-based life, I thought, but I wasn't. And here comes that whole thought thing, right? We as humans tend to overthink stuff, not necessarily in a good way. We analyze and we debate and we tear it apart and try to put sense into things that are nonsensical. But when you step back and you look at the big picture, we only see such a small portion of what's going on around us. And focusing on growth, spiritual growth, emotional growth, physical growth, as we've based this whole thing for, is it's a lot, right? And I've prayed and I've asked God to help me grow faster because I'm older and have less time, right? Careful what you ask for. Man, I'm learning fast. Stuff is just changing so crazily in my business life, and my relationship with my wife is getting better and stronger as we embrace this lifestyle together. So what does all this mean? What is the purpose? What is the purpose effect? What are you talking about, David? All right, let's break it down. We believe that there is a God-given purpose for every human on this thing. God doesn't make mistakes. He had a plan for you. Whether or not your free will, which God has given all of us, is something that you choose to use to continue in the direction, or is it something that you kick and scream and fight about because your desires are different, because your needs in your own mind are different? God knows your needs better than you do. Created you. So figuring out your purpose, what is that? What is our purpose? We've talked about who we are and what our identity is. Alicia says that first and foremost, we're God's children. I agree. But our identity is made up of a bunch of stuff, right? And then you create your identity through your actions, basically, is what we had come down to. And then when you get this feeling, your communication with God, I call it, it's prayer is different than I always thought it was. I always prayed like a child. I didn't pray like a grown-up. I didn't pray as a conversation with God. It was all this submissive asking for, mundane things or complex things, as the case may be. But it was never, prayer was not something that I did listening during, right? And that's a big part of prayer, listening and allowing God to communicate with you. And I don't know how all that works, right? I don't know all the scriptures that these guys know. And I'm still learning a lot, and I'm studying, and I'm finding that as I study and learn that the value in that is incredible, right? I mean, just the calmness that I'm experiencing as I'm learning this is different. I'll tell you, I've never been much on calm, and it's hard to not be that hothead reactive guy that I've always been. Let's go, come on, things to do, people to see, places to go, stuff to accomplish. Yeah. I don't think that's God's will. I think God's will is very intentional, and it's hard to be intentional when you're going so fast that you can hardly think straight. So where does that take you? Right? So now we've stopped this quote unquote childish form of prayer, the society prayer where you get on your knees and you steeple your hands, and prayer has become a communication with God. Now you're growing. Now I'm growing, right? Because I'm not just in it part way. I got my toe in the water, seeing how the pool feels. I'll go in one step at a time. That didn't work for me. All in, here we go. Now, is that because God requires us to be all in, or is that because that's David's personality? David's personality is kind of all in. But God doesn't just get part of you. I don't think that's a compromise that I'm going to try and ask God to make. I'm giving him the whole deal. And with that, my perspective changes, right? So now I don't have to pray. Oh, I didn't pray this morning. I have to pray. It's not like that. Ray's example is a little over the top. Ray prays about everything. Cheerios or cornflakes or whatever. And that's great. And I would like to be more like that, and I'm learning to be more like that. But it's the communication, right? Ray hears things from God as he described. He just kind of hears them. His wife, God communicates with in dreams. Alicia has her own perception of her conversations. I have my own. You have your own. They're unique. Like all relationships, our relationship with God is equally as unique. as our relationships with each other, as the way we approach life. We're all unique. God created us all unique in his form, but with our own unique perspective, point of view, life experiences, our own identity. We can learn, we can study, we can attempt to be more Christ-like, right? Because being more God-like is a pretty worthy goal, in my opinion. As we go through this day-to-day journey that life is, as we open ourselves up to growth, as we put into action the stuff that everybody else only talks about, giving myself grace, giving myself the grace that God has given me, because I don't deserve any of this stuff. It's not about what we deserve. It's a gift, right? So here we are. I've said that I was the covert Christian. Obviously, that was a bunch of baloney because it's all over me now. But is that good? Is that bad? Does it matter? It matters very much. We have told you, Alicia and myself, that our purpose, our mission is to get you to be aware of what your purpose is, right? Because a lot of us don't think about it. I didn't think about it. You know, my purpose was to go to work, build buildings. Not your purpose, folks. Your job is not your purpose. Your job is not your identity. Your job is what you do for money. Can it be a blessing? Can you be fortunate to have a job that fills some of these other spaces in your life, checks off some of the other boxes? Absolutely. If you're lucky and you're blessed, you can. Or if you listen to God's will instead of your own desires, you know, that was something else that Ray said. He prays to be guided by God's will and not by Ray's desires. And that's something I'm working on, right? God can see the big picture. I can't. I'm humbled by that. I don't know what's going on. Heck, I can hardly pick which coffee cup to use in the morning. But with God's guidance, if you are open, if you allow God to do what he does with this whole free will thing that we got going on, there is a peace that I am just understanding. There is some grace that I am just understanding. And that's valuable, right? That's like incredibly valuable. If you follow me on social media, you know that I have insomnia. It's been a problem most of my grown adult life. Sleep 2-3 hours, wake up exhausted, can't rest, mind racing, a million things going on around my brain. The wee hours of the morning when everything's silent. And as I am becoming more prayerful and learning to listen instead of just talk, not one of my high points, which is why I do good at this whole thing where I can talk for a half an hour by myself. But if you align yourself with your purpose, with God's given purpose, not with my purpose, I don't even know what my purpose was. And this conversation that prayer has become goes on, I'm more peaceful. I'm more focused on the things of value. I'm less focused on the things that are spiraling around me that I can't control. And faith and trust is something that, you know, the scripture's all over that stuff. You don't really get a choice in it because you can't see more than a couple steps ahead of you. One of the old sayings that people say that I learned when I was doing 12-step stuff is they say, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift, be present. So worrying about history doesn't change anything. Worrying about it is useless. Understanding it, not repeating the same mistakes, and repeating the successes is valuable. So history has a place of value, but it's not the focal point of your life. We have no idea what tomorrow holds. Only God does. God's intentions for us are greater than we could ever imagine. So worrying too much about what's going to happen tomorrow isn't really productive. You do need to be aware. You can't just be an idiot and go bouncing your face off every wall at the anticipation that God's going to rescue you. God doesn't suffer fools. So here we go, right? We're making these changes, we're learning, we're praying. What is it? What am I getting out of this? Let me talk about my personal experience here a little bit. What's different? Circumstances are kind of a mess right now. Some stuff is going on in my business that I've never had to deal with before. Stuff going on around the orchard. It's springtime. It's busy. We got changes. We got construction on the property. I can guide it, but I can't control it. I don't do it all myself. So what am I getting? I'm getting some peace. I'm getting some clarity. What does that mean? I don't know. Some people, I got over 4 hours of sleep last night. Some people would say, oh my God, I thought I don't sleep. If I don't get 8 hours, I'm useless. When you sleep 2.5 or 3, getting 4 continuous hours of sleep is a pretty big deal. That is a blessing, let me tell you. So why? Right? I think about these things. Why? Well, I'm not relying on my own decisions all the time. I'm not feeling like I'm overextended and I don't understand how it's going to work or how to keep it alive. But through grace, I'm finding a calm in the middle of this storm that we call life. I am coming to understand that everything that goes on is not about us. In fact, very little is about us individually. Sometimes you're going through a time and you're looking around and you're going, oh my gosh, why is this so messy? And then you get on the other side of it and maybe it wasn't your lesson. Maybe you were just being an instrument in the lesson. Maybe it was your lesson. Maybe you needed to know more than you knew when you started whatever it is that you're starting. What are you starting? Clarity, perspective, purpose, okay? As I am understanding, as I grow and learn, I am seeing that my purpose is communication. My purpose is sharing, teaching, modeling. All the stuff you've done, you've become this adult. I'm 61 years old. I've got this entire group of life experiences that are unique to me. Those of you who know me longer have seen some radical changes in my lifetime. I've been accused of that being a bad thing. I disagree. I think you should grow and learn and change appropriately and according to what the circumstances in your life and as God guides you. I didn't really realize that God was guiding it all, but God guides it all. So just get over yourself. You can change your direction a little, this and that, but the trajectory of life is the trajectory that God's created. And getting in alignment with that is what the purpose effect is about, right? Figuring out what it is that God's trying to tell us and then making use of it, right? It doesn't do you any good if you're not sincere. If you, well, let's take prayer. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep, if I may die before I wake, blah, 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 blah. Is it communication with God? It is. But is it mature? Is it effective? You sit down to a meal. Heavenly Father, thank you for this food. Bless it to my body. Look out for mom and dad. I want a new bicycle. More immature, childish. I don't remember the verse and stuff. I was reading in Corinthians and it was saying, when as a child, I spoke as a child, and went on a little bit more. I don't want to quote because I don't remember the exact words, but basically it said that now that I'm a man, I must put away childish things. So prayer is like that for me. I never understood until very recently that prayer is a conversation. And that is huge for me because a lot of prayer in the past, prayer was always one-sided, verbal, me, asking for something, or a lot of my prayer was asking for God to look after other things that I couldn't feel like I looked after myself, people and places and things and stuff. Fully half of my current praying is in complete silence because I'm listening. Prayer is a conversation. It's not just not a pen pal, right? I write down my prayers. Dear God, I need a new car and make sure there's money for the children to go to the dentist. Prayer is more, to me at this point, prayer is, Heavenly Father, guide my day. Where do I go today? And then I listen. Still haven't heard the booming voice. Still waiting for my Charlton Heston moment where, the lightning comes and the clouds open and I hear God's voice out of the sky. But, I have several things that I know I need to do. And as I pray about what my day should be, it just kind of arranges itself in my mind. And that, I believe, is God communicating with me. When you look at your Cheerios or cornflakes, when one just looks different, better, I don't think that's random. I think if you ask for God's assistance, he will guide you towards all the things that you need to have a healthy existence in this life. But you can't if you don't listen, right? It's really hard to learn and grow if you're not willing to listen to the lessons. You can hire a guide and go fishing or hunting or some of those things or photographing, but if you don't actually do it. The guide knows where to go, but you don't. So in prayer, God is your guide, right? So if we're listening, if prayer is not only about my desires, but God's will, then I'm listening. And God will communicate with us all in different ways. Still kind of like to hear the Charlton Heston voice thing, though. That'd be kind of cool. Then there's clear direction. You don't have to ever go back and wonder if you were truly hearing what the answer was. You know, if you understood what it was, you get done and you look back and you know, was that what I wanted or was that God's will? Trying to put the ego aside. Leave your id, as the psychobabble people like to say. Here's a prime example. When I started this podcast today, I had some notes over here and some thoughts in mind and direction. And I prayed that I should be led and that I should do what God wants me to do with this podcast today. And this is where we've gone. Not where I had planned to go, to be quite honest with you. I was thinking all about perspective, and instead all I've talked about is prayer. What is the prayer perspective? Ooh, that's new. I kind of like that. I am going to create my prayer perspective right this moment. Never said this out loud before, but I'm going to say it right now, right here. My prayer perspective is growing. I am learning to listen in prayer. I'll say that again. I am learning to listen in prayer. This is powerful, as Alicia likes to say. I'm sitting here feeling calm and I have this general sense of well-being. And that's how you know, right? When you're following God's my gut. Okay. In the past, I would have said, I'm just following my gut instincts. No, that's always been God. I just didn't recognize it. It's kept me alive through a lot of dumb choices on my part. So if prayer is an attitude of listening, wow, there's a perspective shift, right? Prayer is about listening. So that's what today's podcast has been about. Today's podcast is about listening, learning that prayer is a conversation, and the things I learned the most from are the conversations I say the least in. And that's where I'm going to leave you guys this week. I am going to just say, learn to listen. Learn to listen in prayer. Wow. Listen in prayer. I am David Rosenfeld. This is the Purpose Effect. If today's episode spoke to you, share it with your friends, subscribe. We're on all the major platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're there. God has given us a great alley. And we don't know exactly where it leads to, but it's pretty amazing that you're able to find us wherever you look. So do us a favor, reach up, hit subscribe, share it with your friends. But most importantly, learn to pray. Learn that prayer is an attitude of listening. I am David Rosenfeld. You got me with your Wednesday episodes coming to you on Thursday this week because of my move. Alicia on Mondays with all of her wonderful guests and incredible insights from her perspective. On Fridays, we get together and combine our perspectives and have some really fun interactions sharing with you. And that's what we got, folks. Have a great week. And I am going to leave you with your purpose, the little tidbits I give. And today, it's to listen during prayer. So let's all try to listen during prayer. Have a great week, everybody.